From awaytogarden.com and robinhoodradio.com, this is A Way to Garden with Margaret Roach, your weekly invitation to dig in and grow.
Ken Druse and I are putting a new spin on weeding by giving it a new name, treasure hunting. Maybe the incessant, relentless nature of all those naughty things that keep popping up around the garden beds will be softened if we focus instead on the fact that we might just come upon some real goodies as we seek to rogue out the bad. Discovering treasure while we ferret out the trash being the self-sowns and other desirable volunteers the garden wants to give us, is our topic today. But first, these messages.
Programming and underwriting support from Garden Tool Company. Garden Tool Company's wide selection of heirloom quality tools for your gardening passion is backed by outstanding customer service, fast shipping, and ongoing support. GardenToolCompany.com. Programming and underwriting support from Brushwood Nursery. For more than 20 years, Brushwood Nursery has shipped the finest selection of clematis and other vines all over the United States, with full gallon-sized plant and free shipping. Their website is full of beautiful pictures and information on growing clematis. BrushwoodNursery.com.
Today's guest, Ken Druse, is not a guest exactly, but a regular on the show, a longtime friend, and the author of an astonishing 20 books about gardening. I'm so glad he's here when I, frankly, am having a bad case of garden overwhelm, to just commiserate and talk about what he's finding out there in his own garden as he makes his rounds. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Margaret. I think overwhelm is the right word. Does this happen every year? It seems to me that happens every year.
It does. It does. And yeah. And there's always some extra thing, whether it's one year the weather is even crazier than another, and that makes the annual overwhelm worse.
Every year the weather is crazier.
I know.
It's 90, it's 30, it's snowing, it's raining. Yeah. It's always too late, it's always too early.
Yeah.
We have to clean up all the beds because we like to leave the plants for the birds and the animals. So we do have to do that crazy cleanup thing.
Yeah.
It's part of the deal, I guess. But that gives us a chance to look even closer.
Yeah, which is what we're going to talk about. And so shall we plan to give away, with the transcript of the show over on awaytogarden.com, shall we plan to give away a copy of Making More Plants, your propagation book that's so popular? Even though I know we're not propagating officially in this proposed adventure that we're going to go on virtually today together. But maybe that's a good one to give away, Making More Plants. That's a really great book. So,
thank you.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm not sure which way to turn, as we were just saying, this sort of overwhelm thing, and the temperature's changing, and it rains every day, and then it doesn't rain at all, and oh my goodness. I'm doing lots of lawn repair, and I'm terrible at it, as I've told you before, because the birds won't cooperate. Either the sparrows eat all the seeds, or then after I water each time the new seeds, the robins dig it up to find the worms, because they love nice moist soil when the worms are coming to the surface. So I give up, and I took my houseplants out. I don't know about you, what's going on over there.
You've tried double seeding. You've tried straw, I imagine.
Yeah.
You haven't tried netting because it's so big an area.
Yeah.
But I was thinking this morning, have you tried used cat litter?
No.
I don't have
any cats.
Well, you have friends with cats, maybe.
Yeah.
But the clay litter that just melts.
Yeah.
And I wonder if used cat litter sprinkled around might deter the birds. Just a thought. You'd have to do an experiment. But moving right along.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that those pellets of the newsprint, the recycled newsprint that you've told me about in the past that are used for lawn mulch, so to speak, after you seed. They kind of then meld together in almost like a paper mache coating on the surface. So I don't know. Anyway. And did you take out your houseplants?
Well, I've taken out the houseplants that I know can tolerate the cold because it's still going down into the 40s. I'm sure it is for you too.
Yes.
And almost every year I have to schlep them back in, but it's pretty late this year. So I've taken out things like camellias and citrus, things that I know can go down to 20, really.
Right.
But the begonias, things like that, I haven't taken them out yet, not till the end of the month.
Okay. Oh my goodness, so many chores, so little time.
I'll tell you one thing about houseplants and going outside that has been an interesting discovery for me. I heard somewhere that you can use Castile soap like Dr. Bronner's, that
yeah.
smelly stuff, and you buy a quart and it lasts you 8 lifetimes. And so I thought, well, if that works, as long as it's got Castile soap in it, let me get the baby version. So if it's in the air spraying, it won't smell, it's unscented, and it also won't burn my eyes. So I mixed 1 tablespoon of baby Dr. Bronner's in a quart of water and sprayed it, and it knocked the mealybug back. And of course, 2 weeks later, they're back, but inside. But it really worked, and it's completely safe. And I imagine that's pretty much what's in some of those soap products that you buy.
Right.
But not dish soap, because that can burn foliage. But that Dr. Bronner's baby soap really worked.
Oh, all right. So maybe if they need a little grooming, so to speak, before they go out or on their way out, that's one thing to do.
Yeah, and you can spray them, and then you can hose them down once they're outside.
Right.
Clean them up.
So maybe on to the main event with the competition. I was thinking about this as I was out there weeding, AKA treasure hunting, now that we've renamed it, with the competition for, real goodies at the garden center, just like last year, everything I go and I look and everything I want is gone or never got there in the first place. So there might kind of be no better year to shop in your own garden with a really alert eye, obviously, and make the self-sowns, and the bits and bobs, kind of use, right? So have you sort of noticed any goodies popping up?
Well, the biennials always show up, as you know.
Okay.
And if you're careful and you can get enough root, you can move them. Sometimes you'll move them and they'll take a year off, but they're still alive and they come back. I know you've got more angelica than you can count. You do move your angelica gigas, don't you?
Yes. And, one of the things about, like you're saying, the biennials and also self-sowing annuals, a lot of times, and we laugh about it, why do they always seed in the places we don't want them, like in the cracks in the pavement stones? And
they love that.
Yeah. But sometimes it's hard to get them out of there without sort of shocking them, because they're really wedged into a teeny little space. So they're easier to move in a more open spot. But yeah, I do. I move angelica a lot, among sort of annual things, nicotianas and opium poppies and so forth. But yeah, I move them at various sizes. The bigger they are, the more soil I want to have around their roots. I want to dig up like a clod of moist soil with them. When they're little, I don't care. It's almost like taking a seedling out and, potting it on.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes when I'm weeding and being careful, I'll come across something that's surprising. And it's not something expected like a biennial seed at all. It might be, it's very often a tree seedling, and sometimes it's a rare and unusual tree seedling. And I was weeding in a little area just this week, and there the tiniest Acer japonicum aconitifolium was growing. And I think is maybe 1.5 inches tall, but it has its true leaves, and they are exactly like its parent, which is right above it. So I'm going to carefully lift that and pot it up, and I will have a tree that's kind of precious, actually.
So you're going to translate for us what that is, Acer japonicum aconitifolium?
Well, it's a maple, a Japanese maple, and it's called aconitifolium because the leaves are very finely divided like an aconitum, like a monk's hood.
Right.
Very palmate and feathery. And that tree, I would say, now I'm going to say this, I think it has the best fall color of really any, I'll say woody plant, any woody plant in the garden. It's spectacular.
Yeah.
The colors all change. So there's green, yellow, orange, red at the same time. And the red sort of is like a blood red that drips into the green. They're just beautiful. So I'll grow that on for, 8 years, and then it'll be a lovely gift for someone.
But, and under, I lost my favorite Asian maple. It wasn't Japanese. It was a Korean-ish species, Acer pseudo-siboldianum. And I had a big tree right by when you first came into the garden, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Fabulous fall color. And then one year it just croaked. I mean, it wasn't declining. It didn't miss a beat the season before, and it never woke up. You know, it's probably one of these fungal diseases in the soil or something that who knows what. Anyway, like a year later, while weeding, what we're talking about, while treasure hunting, sorry, I'm not going to use the W word anymore. While treasure hunting, I found just what you're saying. I found this tiny little thing with a true leaf that resembled that lost, beautiful Asian maple, Japanese style maple, you know. And I potted it up, and now I have it in a big pot. It has grown, you know, it's a few feet tall. And I mean, I don't remember how many years ago, but so I've been using it as a beautiful potted thing. I mean, obviously when it's an inch tall, it doesn't look like much, but I've been potting it on gradually. And I think this year it's going to get a place in the ground. So, yeah. So, I mean, you know, that was fun. And yet, if I had been hurriedly weeding, I used the word again. If I'd been hurriedly treasure hunting, I would have just pulled it out with whatever else, you know.
Or mowed it.
Right. If it was into the grass, right.
Right. Well, we were talking about this, and I've been looking harder and harder at some things like that. Well, since I saw that Acer japonicum aconidifolium, I don't know what it's not called full moon maple, but it has a name like that. I saw that there was a primrose growing at the base of an oak tree, and usually they like a lot of moisture, but there it was. Huh. And I don't know how it got there.
Wow.
But that's another precious thing. And if I didn't want to move it, so I just put stakes around it to alert myself and keep the dogs off it, just so I could see what would happen. But there are those little treasures every now and again.
And they're in the funniest places because,
that's true.
I mean, you know, and you don't see them at the first pass. And this is another reason that, you know, I always want help with weeding. There's always more weeding than there is time, right? But how do you explain to somebody who doesn't have the eye that's looked a million times at these plants in all their stages of life, the wanted and the unwanted plants? Like, how do you say, well, now anything that looks like this is, you know, get rid of this. Whereas of this, which doesn't maybe look that different when it's tiny, keep this. Do you know what I mean? You have to train your eye, don't you?
Oh, this is the perennial question. To find someone who knows what a weed is. I in the past, when I've had people try to help, kids usually, who don't know anything, I'll make a little living catalog. Yes. I'll pick 4 things and lay them out and say, if it looks like any of these, out it goes, only. Because it's, I don't know how, I think it just takes years of knowing and also a certain kind of common sense. There's a feel for it, for a plant that's different or could be interesting or precious or there isn't 25 of, you know, it is kind of common sense. And looking.
Yeah. And I guess it's like learning to recognize anything. I mean, you know, an entomologist who can tell, you know, sees insects and knows exactly what they are. You know, we've been around a lot of weeds and also around a lot of different generations over many years of the plants we desire to grow. So we've come to recognize, we have those images fixed in our brain of both.
But don't you always, every single year, come across something you think, is that a plant?
Of course.
Or is that a weed? I need help. There's only one of them. And then you maybe you have to wait for it to bloom. And I know you've got lots of books, so you can look up what some leaves might look like. But there's always at least one plant. Is that a plant? There's that. And then on the whole other side, there's the plants 25 years ago, I remember paying $30 for a hellebore.
Yes.
They were the hottest thing, and they were expensive if you could find them. in a quart pot for really $25 to $30, which is a whole lot of money then, even more than it is now.
Right.
And now what's happened?
Well, they have babies, don't they?
Are you mowing them yet?
No, they're not in the lawn, but each mama plant has tons of babies, little seedlings around herself each year.
It's too bad. 30 years ago, you could be a millionaire.
Yeah.
But not anymore.
No. So what do you do? Okay, so there you are, and you're cleaning up around the hellebores and looking for weeds. Do you get rid of all the seedlings? I mean, a plant could have 50 or more around it.
Well, there's one born every minute. So I usually pass them along to somebody who wants them. Maybe somebody who's got a city garden that they can't really take over. And everybody wants them, or lots of people want them. So I give most of them away. Some of them I just don't pay attention to. And frankly, some of them are mowed because some of mine are under the leaves, but laying over the edge of the bed into the grass, and I just mow them.
I see.
But I don't prick them out one by one. Well, not very often anyway. But I certainly don't need more. What?
No, it's so hard to throw things away, right? I mean, that's part of the problem. That's part of the tension in this exercise we're talking about, in this treasure hunting. Because even if you find maybe not that onesie of that acer, of that Japanese maple, that precious thing, but you might find 100 hellebore seedlings, and when you're cutting back the old leaves of mama plant, and what are you going to do with 100 more, right? So sometimes the best thing to do is just take your fist and grab them all, because they tend to be in a little colony, and pull them up and throw them in the compost, right? And that's the end of that. Like weeding, you're weeding them. Mm-hmm. And then other times, it's really hard to do that. And so this year I said to my flower farmer friends at Tiny Hearts Farm down in Copake, New York, just across the road from me, sort of, I said, you guys, you're doing lots and lots of earlier flowers for your flower shop and your CSA and your arrangements and stuff like that they do for people. And I said, why don't you add hellebores, even before the tulips come or the ranunculus come and the anemones come. And so we had a big dig. While the soil was really moist and it was still cool, we had a big dig, and they put some right into the ground, the bigger plants, and they put some in seedling flats in the greenhouse to grow on a while before transplanting them. But they made like a whole hellebore nursery for future cut flower hellebore.
You're reminding me of something. There's a greenhouse near here for cut flowers that's over 100 years old, and their biggest crop lately, they grow for the New York City flower market, are hellebores. And we've been talking about Lenten roses or X hybridum, those oriental. If you ever cut those in flower, the flowers wilt almost right away. And so I didn't know how they did it. They cut them in fruit. After the petals fall and the things that look like petals start turning green, they stay. They don't wilt. So they cut those and they sell them to the flower market, and it's become one of their most successful crops. They have acres of them.
Oh, interesting. I think you can singe them also, singe the ends of the stems, and I think it helps them to stand up, even when they're not that far gone.
But not when they're fresh. Because I think I've tried that. Even when they're super fresh, they just wilt. The flowers. Yeah.
So what else are you finding out there? Any other goodies? Didn't you tell me that your redbud has been seeding around or doing something?
I have redbud trees, always in the wrong place, seems to me. So, but one of the redbuds that came up this year has kind of golden foliage. So I'm going to keep my eye on that.
Wow.
Every now and again, something comes up that looks a little different or is variegated, and you think, oh boy, I'm going to be rich, which is not the case. And sometimes it's a virus, but this one has gold leaves, so I'm going to watch that. And it is in the wrong place. I get Pontceris, the citrus trifoliata, the trifoliate orange. I get little seedlings from the fruits, and I get maybe 3 or 4 a year, and they're always welcome as gifts because they grow so fast. They're like 6 inches tall in 1 year, so they actually make okay presents. And I've been getting, now you know the European linden that's used as a street tree all over New York and
Yes.
smells very nice. Well, we have a native one, an American one that grows across the river from me. And there I've seen a couple of seedlings of that. And that's a very uncommon tree with beautiful flowers that are amazingly fragrant and big leaves. So I've marked them with a little bit of green ribbon just to keep my eye on them.
Some of the things that, and that's, I do that too. I put like a stake where something is, I'll put a little piece of bamboo or whatever, where something is that I want to remember it is, like for future reference or for moving in the future. But some things, like I was just thinking about the ostrich ferns or other things that are sort of, they're rampant. They're great spreaders, and in certain areas you really want them. It's a great plant on its own in a mass. But what do you do with all the extras? And obviously you can give them to friends. But someone at the New York Botanical Garden, Moby Weinstein, the foreman of gardeners at the Botanical Garden, she told me the other day, she's a fern expert, and she said, "Oh, Margaret," she said, "they're so fabulous potted up in big pots, and they're so hardy to like zone 2 or something, that in a big container, like she did them in a big whiskey barrel sized container, they like are perennial above ground like that if it's a weatherproof pot. So like it's this gorgeous thing, and it's like no care, and it's beautiful at every stage, It even has those fertile fronds later."
Yeah, I can picture it. It's like having a palm in a Victorian urn or something.
Exactly. So sometimes you could even, getting back to like where I said I went to the garden center to find things for, and in my case it was from some annuals. Well, there weren't the things that I wanted. So you know what I'm doing? I may be doing ostrich fern pots this year. That may be my theme song.
That's great.
Yeah. So you can do lots of things.
Goodness knows you have enough of them.
Yes, but you can do a lot of things with it. You can pot them up like the tiny little hellebores, as I said. You could put them in cell packs to grow a little longer, or in small pots to grow a little longer before you either give them away or transplant them, or you could transplant them right away. Or a larger thing like the ostrich fern or my young Japanese or Korean maple, you might pot it up and use it right away as a little ornamental.
Well, when you were having open days, you could have a hellebore bonus plant for visiting.
I used to do that, actually. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I used to put the little seedlings in flats and just let people take 6 packs home with them. Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Very nice.
Yeah. So any other chores that you're doing right now before, are you cutting anything back? Do you do that sort of cut back thing, with perennials?
Sure. I start with the phlox because the phlox grows so fast, and I cut most of the phlox back in half, and then they end up being plants that are about 2/3 as tall as normal. So
what you're saying with the tall summertime blooming phlox, your phlox paniculata, you're cutting them back now, and that's making them bloom maybe a little teeny bit later, but bushier and not quite as tall.
That's exactly it.
And you do it with a lot of, it can be done with like asters and things that get too leggy, even eupatoriums, I think, or whatever the Joe Pies and so forth are called now.
Things that have stems that are going to bloom at the top later. Well, with chrysanthemums, it's tradition that you pinch them, which is kind of different than chopping them. Because the phlox I'll cut in half once. But the chrysanthemums, I'll just pinch them, and then they get bushier and bushier. And traditionally, July 4th, you stop pinching them.
Okay.
Because then they form buds when the hours of daylight get shorter.
Right.
So you don't want to mess with them.
Okay. But do not stop weeding or treasure hunting on July 4th.
Now, we don't have time to talk about this, but I want to know what killed that tree in your garden because I want to know what killed my tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
The underground mysteries.
Someday we'll have to do a little forensics.
Okay. All right, Ken. Well, I'll talk to you soon again, I hope, and get out there and do some treasure hunting, okay?
Right now.
Okay. All right. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Margaret. Bye.
Bye.
Programming and underwriting support from Garden Tool Company. Garden Tool Company's wide selection of heirloom quality tools for your gardening passion is backed by outstanding customer service, fast shipping, and ongoing support. GardenToolCompany.com. Programming and underwriting support from Brushwood Nursery. For more than 20 years, Brushwood Nursery has shipped the finest selection of clematis and other vines all over the United States with full gallon-sized plant and free shipping. Their website is full of beautiful pictures and information on growing clematis. BrushwoodNursery.com. Programming and underwriting support from Garden Tool Company. Garden Tool Company's wide selection of heirloom quality tools for your gardening passion is backed by outstanding customer service, fast shipping, and ongoing support. GardenToolCompany.com.
And talk to all of you soon again, too, I hope. Now, don't miss an episode. You can subscribe free to the podcast version of the show on Stitcher or iTunes or Spotify, and find me anytime at awaytogarden.com or on Facebook and on Instagram as @awaytogarden. And happy treasure hunting meantime.
Away to Garden with Margaret Roach is a joint production of awaytogarden.com and the smallest NPR station in the nation, Robin Hood Radio.